here's an idea. How about I do the October Q&A in October? What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz, Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and it is that time again. It is time for Ask the Phoenix, my monthly Q&A, the 2 days pre, but the pre-Halloween edition of Ask the Phoenix, so happy Halloween. For those of you that celebrate, and for those of you that don't, hey, Halloween's on a Saturday, so I still hope you have a good weekend. How about that? For those of you watching for the first time, put your comments down in the box below if you want them to be included in the November Q&A. I'll remind you guys now, 2 months in advance, I am taking December off again this year. It worked out for me last year. I liked it a lot. I will come back for a preview with my friends for whatever the December pay-per-view is. But other than that, I am taking December off. So after November, the next Q&A will be in January. By then, we will be in Royal Rumble season, etc., etc., etc. Point being, if you're watching this video for the first time and you got a question you want included in the next Q&A, put it down in the box below. Do not, if you are watching this on Twitter or Facebook, put your questions in the comment section under a video post on Facebook, because I will be honest with you guys, I post these videos in a ridiculous amount of places on Facebook, and collecting all those questions from all those different places would be quite a task. And if you do it on Twitter, the chances of me remembering it are about 50-50. That's not to say that I don't care about your question. That's to say, like, things fall out of this little melon on top of my shoulders, and I don't want your question to be missed. If you want to be part of the show, as I say, subscribe up there, talk down there. We'll do all that at the end. But if you're on for the first time you've ever watched one of my Q&As, welcome along for the ride. As I've always said, if nothing else happens on this channel, if I got super busy and my life completely went to the shitter, this would probably be the one series that would keep going. So thank you all for contributing, because without you, there is no this. And yes, that was quite corny. Starting off with my buddy Cheney815, one of the loyals. Depending on whether this Q&A is when this Q&A is uploaded, happy Halloween. I really do try to get these out on time. I know I haven't in the past little while, but I really do try. So happy Halloween, man, and thanks for that. Which wrestlers would you like to see in a particular horror movie? I figured Dean Ambrose could be good in pretty much any like psycho slasher type of thing. Anything, if you ever remember the old movie The Fly, where the guy just sort of mutates and absorbs and sort of becomes larger than life, I think Brock Lesnar would be good for a role like that. The one horror movie series that WWE Films has done is See No Evil, and if you take it on face value for what it is as a silly horror movie, Kane's not horrible at that, so you know, that could be a thing. And also, I mean, Undertaker is tailor-made to be a horror movie character, is he not? So there's a few. I'm not going to say, oh, you know, Braun Strowman should be Michael Myers. I can't assign that directly, but there's a couple out there. I mean, I think even somebody like a Seth Rollins or a Roman Reigns, if used properly, could be horror movie characters. But that's just me, and that might be because of the article they put on WWE.com the other day. Somebody had a lot of fun with Photoshop and turned the WWE superstars into various monsters, Pages of Vampire, and that's another story for another day. Do you think the Wyatt family has the potential to be the next evolution, Four Horsemen, etc.? I don't think so, but I don't think that's what it's supposed to be. The Wyatt family, with the exception of Braun Strowman, who's a slightly separate case, they all came in together. The thing with something like Evolution was you had Ric Flair, who was established, Triple H, who was well on his way to being established, and it was used to bring up... Evolution was really the how can I say this? The breeding ground, proving ground for Randy Orton and Batista. It didn't necessarily do anything for Flair, and DX had already given what it was going to give as far as Triple H not being the guy at the head of the group. So I don't think they can really do that with the Wyatts, who all came in at the same time. Obviously, Bray Wyatt is the head. He's the main eventer. The other two are the mid-carders. Or, sorry, now I should say the other three are the mid-carders. But I don't think it will be the next Evolution, but I don't think it's supposed to be. How about that? Thoughts on TNA's world title situation as a whole? My opinion on them aside, congratulations to Matt Hardy on becoming a TNA World Heavyweight Champion on the biggest show of the year, no less. Biggest show of the year is TNA. Biggest TNA show is like the shiniest turd. I mean, I watch TNA You guys know this. I watch it very sparingly nowadays because it's on Destination America. Up here in Canada, we don't get Destination America, and I'll be fucked if I'm paying for it. I downloaded on Bolly Rules the next day if I've got nothing to do that particular weekend. I did get Bound for Glory because I was curious and because I'm still a mark for the Hardys, and they were in the main event. I got mocked ridiculously by Black Cat Feline in a podcast that she and I did about the fact that I actually bought the show. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, and here is the thing. I'm not going to say that you're bad people out there if you stream a show, if you download a show later on, whatever. I'm not. My opinion has always been, though, if you got it for free, if you didn't pay for a pay-per-view, you can still have your opinion. Don't ever let me sound like I'm taking that away from you. You have less reason to bitch if you didn't pay for it. If you pay a shit ton of money and go to a shitty show, or pay a shit ton of money and you watch a shitty show, it's sort of like that, oh my god, they robbed me of my $60 or whatever. You've got a right to bitch, and you've got a right to be, like, actually offended. If you got it for free, then you got what you paid for. And that's not to make me sound like I'm a better person than I am, because I'm not. It's just the way I carry myself and my opinions. But I did buy the show, and I did get ripped for it. And yeah, to have Matt Hardy win in that triple threat in the shady fashion, basically to have it look like his brother handed him the belt, not to the same degree at all, but if you imagine after Edge retired and then he came back to watch the match between Christian and Del Rio for the belt, and he got involved, and basically they made it look like he was handing Christian the belt. It was supposed to be sentimental and all that sort of thing, but really it just made Christian look like a bit of a jobber. This was the same thing here. I mean, Jeff Hardy isn't retiring anytime soon, to my knowledge, but he really looked like his brother handed him the belt, especially in a triple threat match, which is a schmoz type of match to begin with. It was cool to see, because Matt Hardy was never, in WWE especially, Matt Hardy was never going to be a world champion. He held the WWE CW championship, and that was about it. And if there was going to be somebody to be a main eventer out of the two of them, it was going to be Jeff, because Matt was the Jannetty. So it was cool to see him have that. To have him go, not even on the show the following week, to have him go on Twitter the next day and renege the title from his house, because EC3 went and got some lawyers involved, and it's just so shitty. Job Team Barry Horror Movie Icons Edition. Jigsaw, Leatherface, Pinhead. I job to Leatherface. I would team with Jigsaw, and only because I have never seen Hellraiser, and that's a thing, I would bury Pinhead. Would you rather be locked in Brock Lesnar's Kimura or CM Punk's Anaconda Vice for 1 hour? Now, I gotta go on kayfabe and what we know from kayfabe, not having any experience being in either move. The worst thing that has happened to somebody in the Anaconda Vice was that they passed out or they submitted. There's several situations in Brock Lesnar's storyline with Triple H, with Shawn Michaels, etc., where he's literally broken somebody's arm, and that's been the story. So I would rather, like, for the immediate moment, I would rather pass out than have my arm broken. So I'm going to say the Anaconda Vice. I'm going to think, though, that CM Punk's arm would fall asleep after having me in the Anaconda Vice for an hour, so that is also a thing. Rank the following spear users from best to worst. Batista, Edge, Goldberg, Lashley, Rhino, Roman Reigns. Rhino's disqualified because his is the gore, as we know. Lashley's is horrible, so we'll start with him, then Batista, then Goldberg, and then I'm going to say Roman Reigns. That's not going to make me popular at all. I also like the spear that Charlotte does right now, and when she was around, I like the spear that Caitlyn did. Yeah, Roman Reigns, better than Goldberg. I'm sorry. Hate me down in the box below. I know you're Canadian, but what are your thoughts on Donald Trump running for U.S. president? I don't know enough about American politics to speak to the issues, so I will say this will serve to be a circus. I will say, be careful when you go to your polls. Be careful. I know a lot of people up here, I don't know about you guys down there, have a very cavalier attitude about voting. It's like, who gives a fuck? It's not going to make a difference anyway. I've heard rumblings on social media, etc., that a lot of people are just going to go and vote for Trump because it'll be funny 10 years from now to say, yeah, I cast a ballot for Trump, ha ha ha. If enough people think that's funny, you might end up with a bad hairpiece as your president. I don't know really what else to say to that one, but I'm sure it'll be amusing. Anyways, speaking of Canadians, do you think Lance Storm should come back for one more run regardless of the promotion? I wouldn't have him have a run. I wouldn't have him have a run because, let's be real, his fame was in ECW and WCW, both of which have gone. He had limited success in the WWE. Good for him. I think his skills would be much better used as a trainer in NXT. They would be infinitely better used. He's got the technique, he's got psychology, he's got all that stuff. I don't think... He's been away long enough that I don't think the young crowd that WWE has now will give a shit who he is. But the amount of knowledge, the amount of technique, the amount of... The amount of it factor, the amount of je ne sais quoi that he could pass on to future talents as far as in-ring work would be invaluable. I wouldn't have him have a run. I would have him training the NXT stars. And he could have, because of his age and whatnot, he could have a greater impact on the business as a whole as a trainer than as an in-ring performer. Does that make sense? Do you remember the moment where Edge smacked the ladder with a chair to see how sturdy it was before he climbed it to retrieve the match at WrestleMania, between the briefcase at WrestleMania 21? No. No, I haven't watched WrestleMania 21 in a long-ass time. The following... Okay, this is in big capital letters because when you see what I'm about to say, you're going to see why the header is in big capital letters. But Shaney says, the following is purely hypothetical and I do not wish any fatal harm or illness on any wrestler. All in capitals. Considering October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, let's say a diva gets cancer around this time. Despite being PG, do you think WWE is willing to stoop so low as to integrate it into a storyline or simply exploit it on Total Divas? Where somebody might say, okay, kayfabe is dead, but yeah, so is Natalya in a few months, you fucking pricks. Cheney, this is nothing against you personally, because I know where questions like this come from. This is probably one of the more uncomfortable questions I've gotten since I started doing this Q&A. And again, I'm not saying that to shy away from the question. My answer, I want to hope that WWE would never go that low. I mean, I could give you the logical reasons. They have their great relationship with Susan G. Komen. They have their PG rating. They have a ridiculous amount of censors and political opinion that they have to go do now. On the other hand, look at some of the stuff that they've done. They used... Rey Mysterio used Eddie Guerrero's death, for example. Paul Bearer's ashes with CM Punk. They used Jerry the King Lawler's mother's death as a storyline. They talked about Big Boss Man's dad. They fed Al Snow his dog. Mae Young gave birth to a hand. Katie Vick is a thing. Why are we beeping? Why is that a thing? I want to say that they wouldn't, and I'm about 99.9% sure that they wouldn't. Anyways, now to end that on a low note, but he says, thank you for answering, and remember, candy bars are not fun size if you can't hide drugs in them. Yeah. Yep. Sam Wilson says, I've been meaning to ask you questions for a couple months now, but I keep forgetting. Confused face. Huge fan. You're my favorite YWC reviewer type person. YWC reviewer type person. I love that title. That's great. And thank you for the kind words. I don't try to be up on any sort of big pedestal, but to have you have those high opinions of me is actually quite fantastic. So thank you for that. On one of your old Q&As, somebody asked you about WWE keeping the Divas title off of people that are in Total Divas, and you responded by saying, the only person this will affect is Naomi, and that's a real shame. So clearly you felt Naomi was better than the Bellas at that point. Why did it change? Well, a couple of things. Naomi, as much as I shit on her, and I'm not backing off on the things I say because they haven't gotten any better, regardless of what I think of her as a character, as a person, as an in-ring wrestler, obviously she's an athlete. And at the time when she was on Total Divas, she was just kind of a background talent that was kind of there. And as a background talent that was kind of there, she was good. She was a mechanic. She was, the other person in the match while the focus was on somebody else. And she was good at that. But her work in the ring, since she's become an actual important person, her work rate in the ring has gone down. Her character sucks, which is not totally her. It is on the writers. It is on the fact that the writers have given her this ridiculously old, worn-out, stereotypical, like, gangster hood rat sort of mentality. The fact that both of her defining signature maneuvers in the ring involve either shaking her ass at somebody, rubbing somebody's face on her ass, or throwing her ass at somebody doesn't do anybody any favors. And teaming her up with somebody as popular as Sasha Banks and thinking that it's going to get her over is fucking terrible. The fact that they boosted her as a knee-jerk reaction to losing AJ Lee and tried to fit her into AJ Lee's shoes, by comparison, is also terrible, because look how great AJ is, and look at Naomi. It's the same as the Sasha Banks thing. Sasha Banks is her they're supposed to be partners, but look at Naomi, look at Sasha Banks. Night and day. These are not things that have helped me overlook the fact that her character sucks. They gave her a shitty character, but she's also doing it badly. So the blame does fall on her, and her work in the ring has just gone into the shitter. That's a thing. Did I recognize her as an athlete? Oh, yeah, of course she's an athlete. She wouldn't be in the WWE if she was... Why are we beeping? Like, why is this a thing? I turned the fucking speakers off. But she is an athlete. She wouldn't be in the WWE if she wasn't an athlete. But that's it. Just being an athlete doesn't cut it when you're trying to make her as much of a main eventer as WWE is trying to make. And you can tell that they know she's bad because they're pushing her harder. They're not pushing Becky. They're not pushing Paige as a story, but they're not pushing Paige absolutely down our throats. They don't have to push Natty extremely down our throats. They don't even really, as much as people don't want to admit this, push the Bellas down our throats as much as they do with Naomi. It's kind of like they're thinking, if we get excited about her, people will overlook the fact that she sucks. I said that her being on Total Divas was going to hinder her career. What ended up hindering her career is that her work rate in all facets went down the toilet. And that's why I think about Naomi the way I think about her now. Why does it say your mom on the door behind me? It says a lot of things on the door behind me. I've had this room for quite a while. I built this room. This is for any of you that don't know, I am in the basement when I film these things. I built this room. Shortly after I built this room, people started writing on my door in Sharpie because unless the door is closed, like it is when I'm doing these reviews, nobody ever sees it. So it became a habit for people to sign my door. A lot of it is drawings, a lot of it is song quotes, and a lot of it is just people signing their names. But occasionally, people write things like "your mom." So that's a thing. So that's what that is. Should Tyler Breeze come up to the main roster, and will he be an upper mid-carder or a main eventer or heck even a jobber? He is on the main roster now. He made his debut on SmackDown a couple weeks ago. He's going into a feud with Dolph Ziggler, which I think is great. Upper mid-carder. He's, at least with the gimmick that he's got right now, he's not going to be a main eventer. But he could take on that Kofi Kingston, Christian, etc. part. He could maintain himself at the tippy top of the mid card, and there are people that play out a career like that. There are people that play out their career being the absolute best of the guys just under the main event, and that is an important part of the show. So it's not necessarily something to be snickered at. Why is Dean Ambrose being portrayed as the lunatic or unstable? He's done literally nothing to give off that impression. I love Ambrose, and I think he's destined for big things, but WWE needs to make him actually on edge and a lunatic if that's what they're going to call him. I think when they call him unhinged and the lunatic, it's got to do with his reckless style in the ring, his devil-may-care. He's one of the guys in the, I call the suicide dive revolution in wrestling right now, where the maneuver, the suicide dive, has made a ridiculous comeback. And it's something we didn't used to see at all. And with the infusion of guys from ROH, with the infusion of guys from TNA, etc., that can do it properly, Samoa Joe, for example, Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, it's really had a resurgence. So you get moves and maneuvers like that. Also, you know, the fact that he brought a Singapore cane in his backpack for Hell in the Cell and climbed the cage. It's those little things. It's those things where he's all diabolical as he's going into the ring, and then he just has to give the crowd that look where it's like he's going to do something. He's on task. He's a wrestler. He's got a plan. He's going into the thing. but then you've got that switch. It's kind of like when Shawn Michaels would be in a really, really athletic contest, but then he'd climb into a balcony somewhere and he'd be like, yep, I'm crazy. And then he'd do like a ridiculous elbow or something like that. He doesn't have to be a lunatic all the time. He doesn't even have to be extreme all the time, because then you get Mick Foley, and then you get somebody who's way more damaged than they need to be. But if you get somebody that's good most of the time, that the crowd just knows has the potential to be a lunatic sometimes, I think that can be quite effective. And I think overusing the nickname Lunatic Fringe is WWE's way of trying to get us to keep that in the back of our heads, so that he doesn't have to go out there and kill himself every night. We just need to remember that he can when he needs to. That's totally my take. There could be a completely other reason for it that I'm not aware of, but that's what it feels like to me. Thoughts on James Storm in NXT? Triple H seems to be really high on him. It doesn't surprise me that James Storm is somebody Triple H would be really high on. Triple H is one of the guys I would love to see James Storm feud with, if I'm honest. I love seeing his debut. I said this in my NXT review last night. There's a couple little things that just bug me that probably don't bug anybody else. He's got goofy country music as his entrance music. I only say this because the music, for anybody that still watches TNA, they know the gimmick that James Storm had being in the Revolution. I think the song that he came out, the creepy song that he came out with when he was in the Revolution, or when he started the Revolution, I think the song was called Cut You Down. Was it really gave him a sort of a more menacing, brawler, sadistic feel to it. That's when he started wearing the cowbell and the rope, the big bull rope around his neck, which he's still doing now. They didn't call him the Cowboy when he debuted, and he had Outlaw on his tights instead. So I thought they made him change his nickname, which they didn't. They clarified that this week in an interview. He introduced himself as the Cowboy James Storm. The other thing I don't like is he's got that new finishing maneuver. I think it's called the 8-second ride, which is fine, and it's not necessarily a bad maneuver, but when you're so used to seeing James Storm, it's the same when Samoa Joe debuted. A, is he going to keep his name? B, are they going to let him use the Muscle Buster? If you didn't see Samoa Joe do the Muscle Buster in the Kakita Clutch, there'd be something missing. If they are not going to let James Storm use the last call, there's going to be a bit of a disconnect. On the whole, am I happy to see him? Fucking right I am. I want to see him feud with somebody like Baron Corbin. I want to see him get into a brawl with somebody. I want him on the main roster brawling with Kevin Owens. I really do. I'm excited about it. I'm excited, and we're going to get to this in a second, but I'm excited about the opportunity to have Bobby Roode follow him up and maybe reform Beer Money. Just saying. If you could bring up one tag team into the WWE to help save the division, who would it be? I would say the Wolves. Wolves would be good. I don't know many other... I just said Beer Money. The Motor City Machine Guns would be fantastic. The couple of tag teams that I'm really high on NXT right now, and again, a lot of this is going to divert back to my review last night. If you didn't see the match between Gargano and Ciampa and Jordan and Gable, go back and watch it. Those two teams, I'm not saying push them to the moon. I'm not saying bring them to the main roster, but they could be on the main roster right now. Not necessarily a team that would save the division, but I want to see Enzo and Cass. They will add a different flavor. They've got that big guy, little guy dynamic that we haven't seen in a little while since, Team Hell No and Crime Time and not Crime Time. Primetime Players even have it a little bit. If you remember LAX from TNA, the teams that have like one little energetic guy and one large powerhouse are very interesting to watch. So, and we haven't had that other than the Primetime Players and Kid and Cesaro, which really isn't a thing right now. That in-ring element is kind of missing from the main roster. So bring up Enzo and Cass, or have them do double duty for a while. Have them, I don't know, not the same way that Kevin Owens did. Have them win the NXT titles finally and defend them on Raw and SmackDown a couple times before they drop them. It would be fine. It would be good. Would you like to see NXT go to bigger arenas regularly, or would they lose the atmosphere of the moment? I wouldn't have them do big arenas all the time, like the Barclays Center for TakeOver Brooklyn. That should be 2 or 3 times a year. I do think they need to get out of Full Sail. I think they should play small little coliseums. If they could play, I know that they've gone to Oh, what's the name of the place? Hammerstein Ballroom. I think they've done house shows there. Anybody familiar with my area, the Toronto area, may be familiar with the Ricoh Coliseum. Side note, I'm going to see WWE house show at Ricoh Coliseum right between Christmas and New Year's. It's going to be a good time. Anybody from the Toronto area that's going to that show, hit me up. Come and say hi if you don't know me. I fully welcome that. I know a lot of my viewers aren't from Toronto. I'm fully aware. But for the chance that some of you are, I will be there, and that'll be good times. They could play places like that. I don't think they need to bump themselves up to a Raw or SmackDown or WWE pay-per-view size arena all the time. But I do think when they went to the Barclays Center, they went to a larger arena and did a good job of still giving it that small, intimate NXT feeling. So they could prove me wrong. They could go off to big stadiums all the time and maintain that atmosphere. I don't necessarily think they have to yet. Will Seth Rollins ever be booked as a credible champion as he should be before his inevitable face turn? I think the first step in that was him getting the clean as a sheet victory over Kane. He has survived Sting. He has survived John Cena. He has survived Lesnar all through shady, schemy means, obviously. Kane's not the biggest guy in the world. He's not the biggest name. He's not the most marquee victory. But he got a clean victory. He went into that very, very much selling the fact that he was afraid of the demon, very much nervous that whether or not he had Stephanie and Triple H's backing or not, and he won the match clean. Was it huge? Was it, beating the Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania? Was it making Brock Lesnar tap out to his own Kimura or anything that big? No, but I think it's a step. I think it's a little step, but important step, and we'll see where it goes from there. How will we solve Neville's downfall? He's just having pointless matches right now. Neville is basically an X Division star from TNA in WWE. I really don't know, because it's one of those things. He's so interesting to watch in the ring that I don't think I would spend the time caring about his character if he had one, because I'm watching him to see what he does in the ring. Basically, imagine the Cruiserweight division in WCW at its high point. Yeah, you knew this guy was this guy, and this guy was this guy, and this guy had a neat mask and whatever, but really, you wanted to see the spot fest, and that's what you came for, and that's what you get, and that's what you get from Neville as well. They constantly try to team him up with other people that aren't as good, but have a good character to balance out the interest, and I don't think it works. He's got this team going on right now with him and the Lucha Dragons, and their style is similar, and I get it, but WWE doesn't have a three-man tag division, so them versus the Cosmic Wasteland isn't going anywhere in the long run, is it? Will Neville ever, I can speak, I swear, be a world champion, or is he U.S. champ at best? I could see him going as far as the IC, maybe a good tag team championship when he gets himself a full-time partner. It looks like they're putting him with Cesaro quite a bit. I think maybe they're replacing Tyson Kidd with Neville, which really sucks for Tyson Kidd, but that could be a thing. I could see him being a tag champion. I could see him being a very dominant tag champion. As I said with Tyler Breeze, I could see him being, tippy top of the mid-card. Main event, not so much. If the main event was a multi-person match, like the Elimination Chamber or something of that, something along those lines, he could be one of the filler guys, like R-Truth or Kofi Kingston or John Morrison when he was in the WWE, got to be fillers in those matches. He could sort of scrape at that main event. I don't think he'll be a main event champion. I just don't. I'm sorry. And that's nothing against the talent. It's just where I see him. Who will step up when John Cena takes time off? Well, we established that on Monday Night Raw. It's Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is going to Survivor Series to take on Seth Rollins, and my opinion, probably 80% sure he's going to take the title off of Rollins. Is Paige trying to be another AJ Lee? It certainly looks like it. No, because AJ kind of was legitimately crazy, kooky. Nobody ever knew what they were going to get from her or what her motivations were, and she was sort of like the nerdy punk kind of girl, no pun intended. Paige isn't so much. Paige has got more of like the animalistic, the gothic, the crazy, but like a much more honed in, pinpointed crazy. Like, you are my opponent, so I'm going to be crazy at you. I'm going to tear apart you. I'm going to do whatever I can to tear you apart. Whereas AJ Lee's craziness was kind of fluffed all over the place, and whoever crossed her path or called her crazy. I can see the similarities, especially the way they tried to pair them off so much towards that one big WrestleMania match that they had, but I don't think it's 1 and 1A. I really don't. Where is Sandow? Good question, and I love that you even made it a hashtag. Would you mark out for one last Shield match or Shield reunion? Well, they teased the Shield reunion on Raw, and Rollins kind of fucked off and left the other two to their devices. I think by doing that, they've soured the crowd, at least for a little bit, on the idea of a Shield run. I think what will happen, I think the day that Rollins turns face and the day that Dean Ambrose turn heel are going to be the same night. Rollins is going to come around, come back to his brothers. There's going to be some sort of big teamwork thing, and Ambrose is going to turn on both of them, and he'll be the heel. I don't know how they're going to do it. I think it'll be great when it does, but not for a long time yet. Do I want to see another, like, actual Shield reunion? Does the Divas Revolution seem very underwhelming? The Divas aren't getting longer matches, and I feel like they're all pointless six-man Diva tags. The teams of three need to go. That's a fact. As I've said with the guys as well, there is no point to a three-man team. There is no point to constant 3-on-3 matches. They're great on Raw as story builders because you got this team fighting this team and this guy fighting this guy. Okay, let's showcase all of them because all of them have matches coming up this Sunday. It's a great promotional tool. There's no longevity in the long run. So they're slowly breaking out of that. Paige split from PCB twice. Natty sort of stepped in, so that's not a solid three-person unit anymore. They're gonna do something with Team Bad. They're gonna play off on the crowd doing the "We Want Sasha" chants, and Sasha will either turn face or Naomi will just fuck off or whatever. And I mean, the Bellas, Nikki's going on vacation with John Cena is what I hear, and Brie Bella's gonna go breed with the GOAT, so she'll be gone too. And Alicia Fox by herself, I'm sorry, isn't gonna hold up as a character for very long, which is sad because she's actually underrated in the ring, in my personal opinion. But the matches are getting longer. We're getting better matches. The girls from NXT are almost constantly getting to shine. When we do get the 6 Diva tags now, it's not so much, the story isn't about the match. The purpose of the match, the purpose of the segment on Raw or on SmackDown is what happens afterwards. Like we had on Raw this past week as an example. We had Team PCB versus Team Bella for the millionth time, absolutely. But the story wasn't that match. The story was the dissension in PCB that cost them the win, and the story was Paige kicking the shit out of her former teammates after the fact. So while the 6-man tags are very overdone and very repetitive, they serve their purpose because, hey, we need this violent thing to happen in the ring, but we need a reason for all those people to be out there. So we'll throw this match together, we'll get the match out of the way, and then we'll tell the story. And I think if you take a second and look at the segments, and you could say this for any match that we see consistently on Raw or SmackDown, take a look at it for what it is, point out and recognize that it is repetitive and express your frustration about that. But in its repetitiveness, what was its purpose that week? What part of the story did it tell? What did it advance? It did, like, the match with PCB and the Bellas at the end of the day didn't have anything to do with the Bellas. It had to do with the desolation of Team PCB and Paige, making her intentions perfectly well known to Charlotte, hitting her with a rampage and locking her in the PTO, which made me smile. So I don't think it's losing steam. They are getting longer matches. Each Divas match on Raw and SmackDown right now is a 2-segment match, whereas they used to be less than a minute long. So I think that's a little exaggerated, but it's not underwhelming to me. But then again, I'm known for being notoriously positive. To what I just said, why is Alicia Fox on Team Bella? She's literally the definition of a third wheel. She's got no reason to be there. Before the Divas Revolution, the only story going on in the WWE really was Paige versus the Bellas. She tried to rally the rest of the roster against the Bellas. The Bellas were like the popular kids. They were the mean girls, for anybody that's seen that movie. And nobody really wanted to step up to them, and to the point where somebody got bullied into following them. There had to be that, okay, the Bellas have all this power, they've got all this pull, they're good with the authority, whatever. They used Alicia Fox at that point to show, okay, somebody got intimidated so much that they got locked in a better to join them than be beat by them mentality. I mean, in afterthought, we know that it was to set up the 3-on-3-on-3 at Survivor, or at SummerSlam. But I do agree. At this point, there's no reason for her to be there at all. It was a storytelling thing. It was to just increase the 2-on-1 story to a 3-on-1 story with Paige, necessitating Stephanie McMahon bringing in all this backup and starting the Divas Revolution. But that story having... that story having played its course, no, there's no reason for her to be there now. And her identity, like, if you take it right down to her ring gear and her apparel, she is the third Bella. Like, if I was as racist as people say that I am, I would call her the Chocolate Bella. But that's just a thing. Would you like to see Bayley versus Banks one more time, maybe in a ladder match? Fuck yes, every day of the week and twice on Sundays. What the hell happened to Rusev? What happens to all the big guys in WWE? They come in, they're new. It's like WWE writers have a bright new shiny toy. They have them clobber everybody. And then, okay, what do you do with them? And then he ends up in a goofy storyline. And then if he follows the Big Show, he'll be in some WWE Films movie wearing a diaper soon. I really hope that doesn't happen. This new faction that they've got going on with Sheamus, Barrett, and Rusev could be a thing. But again, I go back to my initial point. Why are there so many 3-person teams in the WWE? Who would be your first Paul Heyman... Who would be your next Paul Heyman guy? Choose somebody who hasn't been there before, including not including Axel Cesaro, etc. I would say Kevin Owens, if Kevin Owens wasn't so good on the mic. You gotta think somebody from NXT. Baron Corbin, who sucks on the mic, who isn't particularly great in the ring, but could be built up as a beast. WWE could build an aura around him, and with Paul Heyman doing the talking for him, he could be a major star. Who would be the first Paul Heyman girl? I think Sasha Banks would be a good fit. Again, I don't think she needs it, per se. I would say somebody that's not making an impact on their own, and most of the divas are, so I would say, who am I... See, the sad thing is, when I say who I want the next Paul Heyman person to be, I have to think who's not impressing me right now, who needs the boost, and the only one I can think of off the top of my head right now would be Nia Jax. And I think it would be really... I don't know what it would do, actually. I don't know whether it would come off as contrived or whether it would come off as completely awesome to have Paul Heyman managing somebody in NXT while Brock Lesnar's on a break. I want to hope that would be awesome, but again, I don't know how that would play out at all. Would you like to see Bear Money in NXT? Would you like to see the Motor City Machine Guns in NXT? Oh, and fuck yes. Thoughts on Alberto Del Rio possibly returning? Would you return if you were in his shoes after the BS he went through before he left, the whole racism allegations? Well, we know that Alberto Del Rio is back. The way they brought him back was great. The way they've got him with Zeb Colter is fucking weird. Would I come back after the interactions that he had with that guy that got him fired in the first place? If that guy was still working there, no. If that guy was let go, which I've heard he was, I would go where the money is, and that's just a thing. And finally, you've got to decide on a whole brand split, and don't just say you wouldn't do it. Choose 2 top guys for Raw and SmackDown. Choose 3 top divas, 3 tag teams, 6 mid-carders, and even a couple of jobbers. You can decide which titles go on which show if you like. I'm not doing the titles thing, but I did take a couple minutes just to put this together. This is totally random, off the top of my head. I don't know how much stock you want to put in it at all, but for Raw, I've got Rollins, Ambrose, Nikki Bella, Alexa Bliss, Natty, The Ascension, The Lucha Dragons, Gable and Jordan, Alex Riley, Bray Wyatt, Owens, The Miz, Ryback, Stardust, and Heath Slater. For SmackDown, I've got Roman, Orton, Paige, Becky, Sasha, New Day, Dudley's, Enzo and Cass, Del Rio, Cesaro, Ziggler, Neville, Rusev, Sheamus, and Zack Ryder. Do with that what you will. The Angry Mark says, should Bo Dallas have his own followers that worship everything he does called the Bo Leavers? I think they missed a mark here where they could have, at least for a couple of weeks, had Bo Dallas teaming up with the New Day because the gimmicks are so friggin' similar. But I wouldn't have him have his own faction. I would have it where so many people would want Bo Dallas to join his brother in the Wyatt family. I would have him be adopted into the Wyatt family, but still have the ridiculously positive thing going on, and every time somebody tries to talk shit about the Wyatts or how horrible they are, have him constantly, like, relentlessly positive, trying to put a positive spin, you know, da-da-da-da-da. Like, if Bray Wyatt was facing John Cena is the easiest example I can think of. Oh, Bray Wyatt said all these horrible things, and Bray be like, no, my brother's just trying to show you all this nasty stuff that John Cena's done, and then he could be, like, this ridiculous, like, the Wyatt family apologist. Almost. He could be he could be the Spike Dudley of the Wyatt family. I don't see him being the leader of a group. No, I don't at all. Will WWE Raw ever go back to 2 hours? I don't know that they will. But you never know. Anybody at any given time could say that Raw needs to go back to 2 hours, but if they cut out that hour that they cut could be the stuff that you're enjoying. I don't think, and a lot of people think that the big savior of Raw will be sending it back to 2 hours, but it depends what they do with those 2 hours. If you think Raw is 2 hours of shit and 1 hour of good stuff, okay, I'm not saying what's good and what's not. I'm saying if, for whatever reason, however your rhyme or reasons go, you think that Raw is 2 hours of shit and 1 hour of good stuff, you cut off the 1 hour, they could be cutting off your good shit. It's to me, it's never been a matter of how long the show is, making it good or bad. It's been a matter of what they do with the time. Sometimes they do great, sometimes they do not so great. But I don't think the time will change that. Do you think we will ever see the backstage brawl again? Yeah. People will get jumped in the back again when WWE needs to spice things up. Should WWE sign Samuel Shaw? I don't know. Samuel Shaw and the whole storyline in TNA with Christy Hemme, him following her in her house and making a doll out of her hair and shit like that, was pretty creepy and pretty not PG. So you could sign Sam Shaw. He was a decent enough talent. I don't think his character in his current form that we remember would work within a PG structure. So you'd be either signing in for a watered down version of that character, or you'd be signing on for that talent to play a brand new character, and then we might have Brodus Clay syndrome. Am I the only one that thinks people overrate Dean Ambrose? I see him as an upper mid-card guy at best. I don't agree personally. I think he's got a tremendous upside. I feel that a lot of people that have seen him in like CZW, ROH, FCW, etc., agree with me, but I haven't actually seen any of those things. But even just somebody who Dean Ambrose is brand new to me, he feels like somebody that wants to do more and hesitates all the time. So you can tell that he's being told what he can do and what he can't. I think if they let him open up a little bit and do what he wants to do, I think he'll be just fine. Gary Monahan says, "Hey Spaz, your Q&As are excellent as usual. Thank you. I genuinely do appreciate that. Here are my questions for this month." Or, here is my questions for this month's. I don't. Okay. Do you think the Total Divas show is a waste of time and has ruined the whole good girl versus bad girl thing? As we know, most of them are buddies off screen. Example, Paige and Natalya. They're supposed to be enemies, but we've seen them hugging on Total Divas being best bosom buddies. Total Divas is a shit show. It's basically a tumor on the living system that is WWE. I will agree with that, but not for the reasons that you've said. I think we're far past the point of breaking kayfabe, trying to protect kayfabe, and I think that's okay, because in the past we spent so much time trying to protect kayfabe, protect characters, etc. Whereas the only example I can think of, for the people that watch Walking Dead, and on AMC, and obviously they do Talking Dead afterwards, which is annoying because it's hosted by Hardwick, and that's just bad. But you could see, go back to maybe season 3 or so, if you had Norman Reedus on the couch and the guy that played the governor on the couch, now those two should want to kill each other in the show. The fact that they're sitting on a couch joking about how they put a show together doesn't take anything away from the show. And I don't think at this point having an interview with superstars who are sort of pseudo out of character does that either. I mean, anybody that has a WWE network that has been watching that the series that they've put out now called Table for Three, which I think is a fantastic concept, by the way. Anybody that doesn't have the WWE network, go torrent it, go download it. Table for Three, it's fucking great. They did one with R-Truth, The Miz, and Curtis Axel that was Just great. R-Truth wrestled Curtis Axel's dad. R-Truth's old, guys. That's another story for another vid. I don't think it hinders it at all. I do think that Total Divas needs to go away because the politics of balancing a reality show and a kayfabe show fucks with a lot of shit. But I don't think it should ruin your opinion of I mean, you saw on NXT when Natty and Tyson Kidd were on NXT, and they were trying to blend the story from Total Divas into what was going on NXT, but you'll notice that they really haven't done that anymore. The only real other thing that is mentioned in mainstream TV is the fact that Brie Bella and Daniel Bryan are married, and that really even doesn't affect very much because Daniel Bryan's like super babyface and the Bella twins are heel right now. Daniel Bryan's also thankfully not here right now. So yeah, I think it's a bad thing for the WWE, but just not for the reason that you mentioned. There is talks, if you believe what went on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast with Paul Heyman, that Brock could face Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 32. Would you be up for that? Totally depends on the physical condition of Stone Cold. If he's gonna go in, if he's all fucked up still, because as I've said before, it's not that I don't respect Stone Cold, but if I'm going to see Stone Cold in 2015 with his bad neck and his bad back and his two bad knees try to have a convincing match with Brock Lesnar, who is the wrecking ball of wrestling right now, it's going to be sad. It's going to be Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar from a couple years ago. And it is the same reason that I've said I don't want to see Undertaker versus Sting, because it will be disappointing. I have more respect for Steve Austin than wanting to see him go and have this match in 2015 if he can't give us the kind of match that he would want to give us. Would I be up for it? If it happens, ask me on the day. As a fan, you know, my fan heart wants to say, oh hell yeah. But the logical part of me is going to be like, oh, it's going to be sad. I don't know. It's tough. It's really, really tough. When Goldust comes back, do you think he will resume his feud with Stardust, or what do you think they will do with him? I haven't necessarily heard that Goldust is coming back. I don't think there's anything left for him to do. He's won the Intercontinental title. He's been the tag team champion. He's not going to be a world champion, guys. Let's be real. And Stardust has become a whole new anomaly all on his own. So I don't think Cody needed his brother in the first place, but he definitely doesn't need him now. So I don't know what Stardust would do, and to have him come back just to sort of linger around the show doesn't seem right. Goldust's another one that could find himself a very good second career in NXT, helping develop that new. Because Goldust is one of the most flexible characters in wrestling. You figure how Goldust started being the incredibly flamboyant, to be politically correct, character that he was back before WWE was PG, and to sort of transition a character like that into something that fits a PG structure takes some character dynamic flexibility, all that sort of thing. Goldust could be one of those guys in NXT. Maybe he wouldn't necessarily be the one training them in the ring, but he could be, like his dad, training people on promos, training people on character development, training people on character transition, babyface, heel. Do you want to make this guy a little weirder? Do you want this guy to really pull something out of his personality that's going to make them jump out? I think he has more to offer in that context than being an on-screen character, much like the question about Lance Storm earlier. What do you think of WWE's latest move of deleting Hulk Hogan from their records and from the Hall of Fame? It's dumb. I mean, it would be dumb for anybody. It would be a dumb knee-jerk reaction for any superstar, but for WWE to think they can erase Hulk Hogan from their history is dumb, because so much of their history is Hulk Hogan. Hulkamania started WrestleMania, and et cetera, et cetera. It goes on from there. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, there's been talks of an Owen Hart DVD box set coming out with all of his best matches, maybe a documentary on there too. Would you like to see it, and do you think that means he may still get into the Hall of Fame if the DVD has gotten the go-ahead? I would think they would go hand in hand, regardless of the fight with, what's her name, Martha Hart, as to keeping Owen Hart away from all that. I'm not going to speak much to that. I did a whole video on that a while ago. My own frustrated feelings about that. As a fan, yeah, he should be in the Hall of Fame. As a fan, I would buy the DVD, obviously. And at that point, I think your question is done that way. As a fan, yeah, I would get the DVD. I wouldn't care about the politics behind it. Yes, I want to see him in the Hall of Fame. I don't care about the politics behind it. At this point, why? At this point, why deny the fans the opportunity to appreciate Owen, and why deny Owen his place where he should be in wrestling history? I don't understand. I don't mean to say this in such a way that I'm attacking Martha Hart or that I'm saying she's a horrible person. Right there. I honestly don't get where she's coming from. And I can't. I'm not in her position, obviously, but it's just... You're not helping you're not helping yourself, you're not helping your late husband, you're not helping all the fans that loved your late husband. I can't wrap my head around it. Pick 3 matches, one of them being a Divas match that you would like to see at WrestleMania 32. Sasha Banks versus Nikki Bella, The Rock versus Triple H, and... Dudley's versus the Hardys one more time. Come on. Pick 3 surprise entrants in the Royal Rumble you would like to see this year, and who would you lose their shit if they did? Jeff Hardy. If there was some sort of medical way it was possible, Edge. And John Morrison. Have you ever met any wrestlers or divas, and what were they like? I met Jeff Hardy when the Hardys were just sort of on the cusp of being the next big thing in wrestling. It was at a book signing. It was actually... Where is it? Hold on. Right there. Met the Hardy Boys, which was quite a long time ago. Haven't read this in years, actually. But, no, I met the Hardy Boys, and the thing is, where, at the bookstore where it was kind of like an out-of-the-way part of Toronto, so there wasn't a lot of people there. There was a gap behind me. This was long before I got this tattoo, but it was when Jeff Hardy was just starting to get his tattoos, and I sat there and shot the shit with Jeff Hardy about tattoos for a while. The other cool thing I would say, as far as meeting people, I got to take my picture in the ring with Kurt Angle at a TNA show, and at that same TNA show I got an autograph from Mickie James, who at the time happened to be singing Smashing Pumpkins, which was another interesting little experience. If you could interview one current diva, one legendary diva, one current male star, and one legendary star for a special Spaz Meets on your channel, who would the lucky 4 be? You got to put in there a commentator and a manager, because I would love to interview Paul Heyman, and I would love to interview Jim Ross. But current diva, and I'm going to skew from this a little bit because I'm still going to consider her a current diva, AJ Lee. Obviously legendary diva would be Lita. Current male star, I'd love to interview The Miz. I really would. I know there's bigger names in the company that I could interview, but I would love to interview The Miz. Legendary superstar Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels or The Rock or Jeff Hardy or CM Punk. You're sitting at home minding your own business, the phone rings and Triple H, and he's like, Spaz, I need you to come to WWE and save the company. What are the first 5 changes you would make to save the falling ratings? Oh, man. Hardcore matches, but hardcore matches done appropriately and not just as a knee-jerk reaction to low ratings. I'd incorporate them more naturally. I would get rid of most of the themed pay-per-views, the Elimination Chamber, the Hell in the Cell, whatever. I would make all those matches mean something. Again, I would do what everybody has said. I would get rid of the Divas title, bring back the Women's title. Even though it wouldn't change the division, it would make a lot of people happy, and it would be one of those little things. I would amalgamate the United States and the Intercontinental Championships so that one single mid-card title was known as the undisputed stepping stone to the main event. I would have a really hard look at who held that belt. I would... SmackDown would be live. I would have an NXT show. I would have an NXT special the Saturday before each of the main 5 pay-per-views. And I say main 5 because I would bring back King of the Ring. Should they change SmackDown? Should they change SmackDown to a show that does both the WWE and NXT superstars? They did something similar to this. Before NXT was NXT, when they had the WWE's version of ECW, they had, in storyline, they had the talent exchange between SmackDown and ECW. But that's because SmackDown on its own, because they had the brand split, SmackDown on its own and ECW on its own weren't getting any hype, so they figured have one sort of amalgamated roster that had twice a week to get everybody's attention, and they might be successful. But no, there's no way you're not going to see Raw as the main flagship show, no matter what you do. I would almost say get rid of the NXT 1 hour show, have WWE Raw and NXT Smackdown, or whatever you want to call it. Don't have it as a blended thing, because as soon as you blend it, then the whole idea of somebody ascending to the main roster is meaningless, because they've already been competing on the main roster. That has to be a jump. That has to be something that is definite, something that is, okay, this guy has moved from here to here. If he's been on SmackDown facing all the guys that are already here, it doesn't mean anything. It really, really does. That's why I always sort of hesitate when the guys debut on the main roster and they're still appearing on NXT, because it's like, okay, you put one foot out into the waters of the main event, but you're still, you've still got the other foot on the comfortable sand of NXT. It makes everything seem very tenuous. I have a theory of the whole Dolph Ziggler-Rusev thing. Bear with me. If you notice, Lana only came out to hook up with Ziggler when it was announced that he was the last Chamber entrant. Do you think the original plan was for Lana to actually pretend to want Ziggler, and then come when it came down to him and Rusev at the end, only for Lana to screw Rusev and leave him as the Intercontinental Champion? So basically, pretend to like Ziggler so that she could screw Ziggler so that Rusev could walk out with the belt. Could have been something they were doing. What they did was a lot more convoluted and tabloid-ish. It's just a mess. And the whole Rusev-Lana thing coming out on TMZ, which was at least partially planned. Like, I'm sorry. WWE pretending to be angry about it is bullshit. I think this sort of, they started off with this cute little tabloid thing that just kept on going, and they didn't know what to do with it. It was like the anonymous Raw GM becoming Hornswoggle. There was no good answer. There's no good answer for this either, so they just sort of ended it. They grabbed Summer Rae out of the equation, kept Ziggler and Summer Rae over here so that Rusev and Lana can be over here, bring in Tyler Breeze, we'll forget about Rusev, and we move on from there. I don't think they knew what the end game was, quite frankly. WWE does that quite a lot. After Hell in a Cell, what route would Brock and Undertaker take next? Brock will go away for a while until his next opponent is announced. Somebody's saying Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman, which is just crazy. The Undertaker looks like he's going into a Team Taker versus the Wyatt family at Survivor Series, which I don't mind at all. I saw a graphic the other day on Facebook that had the 4 members of the Wyatt family, had Taker, Kane, Sting, and Finn Balor. And I'm sorry, I'd mark the fuck out. I really would. Why hasn't Booker T returned to commentary on Raw now that Tough Enough is over? Because the commentary teams for Raw and SmackDown are now completely separate. You've got Michael Cole, Byron Saxton, and JBL on Raw. You've got Rich Brennan, Jerry the King Lawler, and Booker T on SmackDown. I don't think it was good having commentators on both shows. I mean, if you don't watch SmackDown, then maybe I'm telling you something you don't already know. I don't think it's good to have multiple commentators on multiple shows, because even though it's one roster, even though we're not in the brand split anymore, each show should have its own feel. I mean, I'm not going to be one of these guys that gets hung up on, oh my god, they have the same stage, because that's lame. But each show should have its own feel. Each show should have its own voice, so to speak. And I'm not saying that in a cliche way. I'm saying that SmackDown should feel different from Raw. Raw and SmackDown should feel different from a pay-per-view. NXT feels different from Raw and SmackDown, and that's why it sticks out as its own entity. Booker T isn't on Raw anymore because he's not the Raw commentator, he's the SmackDown commentator, and there's the very simple answer to that. Anyways, that is it. That is all. I have talked for roughly an hour now, I think, if the counter on my camera is correct. I'm going to say once again, thank you to all of you who submitted questions for the Q&A. Without you guys, these Q&As do not happen. I'll say it one more time. If you've never seen one of these Q&As before, put your questions down in the box below. They will be included in the November Q&A. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter and all those things if you want to chat me up, but the questions for this Q&A go in that description box right there. And I'm doing it okay, Fabe, and I'm pointing at my crotch. That's been it. Like I say, thank you very much. This series will always go on, even if all the other ones stop. This has been Ask the Phoenix for October 2015. I've been Spaz Phoenix, your YWC reality check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I'm tagging out. Bye, guys, and thank you.